Welcome back into Sports Talk ATL. I'm Jay Searle, joined by Alex Lord and Mark Zeno. So, Mark, I have this tinfoil hat theory. Because of the moves that the Falcons have made, I think everybody thought, hey, Terry Fontenot, he's out there. He's going to be general managing for his job. That maybe the shots aren't all being called by a general manager that is out there trying to save his job, because signing Leonard Floyd to a 1-year, $10 million deal, you're not really restructuring contracts to do that. Letting Grady Jarrett walk, letting Drew Dahlman walk, all these moves. This roster's not in a better place than it was last year to win now. And if you're a general manager that's on the hot seat knowing this is your final season, that's not really how I would act or you would act. I don't think anybody would act.
No, yeah. I mean, for somebody who's theoretically, on thin ice for job security, the idea that there's not more of an all-in mentality and going out there and chasing some of the bigger names, bigger players, bigger stars. And again, it's not all about chasing names per se, but, when Leonard Floyd is the greatest acquisition you made this offseason, no disrespect, Leonard Floyd, that doesn't really sit in your defense that finished 20-something last year.
7th or 8th.
Yeah.
30th in sacks, I'll tell you that. Or 31st in sacks.
That doesn't exactly, inspire a ton of confidence. But to your point, maybe there is a world where Arthur Blank is setting the table to dump Fontenot after this year when they miss the playoffs again. And they will be in a much better cap situation when they don't have $40 million on a backup quarterback. They only have $25 million on a guy who's not on the roster at all. I
love it.
Maybe there's a world. Again, it flies in the face of everything you would think about in general, because Arthur Blank has proven that he just doesn't want to wait anymore. His impetuousness, his quick decision-making, his over-emotional decisions have shown us over the last 4 or 5 years he doesn't want to wait anymore to be a winner. That's the only thing that would fly in the face of that. But I could see the tinfoil hat you're crafting and trying to put on, yes.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like Divine Diablo, Leonard Floyd, re-signing Mike. These aren't moves that, typically a guy with his back against the wall. Like, my back is against the wall. I don't care if I'm even in my position in 2026. I'll deal with it tomorrow. I'm emptying the chamber. I'm trading draft picks. Trey Hendrickson is a Falcon. I'm doing all those things if theoretically, like we're saying. So I do think that Chase, he might not be directly onto something, but there's absolutely no way somebody can look at the Falcons roster, not the coaching staff, just the roster, and say this roster at this date is better than it was a year ago.
Right.
There's no way. Now, I think I could make the argument that the defense just cannot be as bad as it was talking about Jimmy Lake, because I think that guy literally didn't know. I don't know what was going on in the back. You don't have Jesse Bates All-Pro, Justin Simmons All-Pro, AJ Terrell All-Pro, Mike Hughes, who's a veteran in this league, come out in the final game and say, yeah, there's miscommunication on the back end without some clown leading you.
I've also been saying that for 25 years, though. Like, the defense can't be possibly worse than it was. And then that's what it's like. Oh, we got Dan Quinn. It's good. No. No. Like, yeah, we bring in defensive coaches all the time, and they and they go to other places and have success. For some reason in Atlanta, the combination of the GM and the defensive head coach cannot still put a competent defense. I think we've had 2017, the year after the Super Bowl. That defense was good.
That was a top 12 defense, I think.
Yeah, that was the best defense we've had my entire life. I'm 30 damn years old.
And oh, by the way, real quick, shame on the Falcons game day staff and everybody in promotions department. Like, if Divine Diablo gets a sack and they don't cut to that scene from Ricky Bobby's like, what's Diablo? He's like, it's Spanish for like a fattened chicken. Like, if I don't see that pop up on the screen, that like, shame on them, because that's all I want. What's Diablo? It's Spanish for like fattened chicken.
All right. Well, I do want to talk like talking about the overall, picture of the offseason. We have a lot of issues. We just talked about Grady Jarrett. Maybe Rook fills that void. But like, linebacker, in my opinion, hang on. Linebacker, in my opinion, wasn't high on the list of like, hey, we might need a starting center now, but now we're going to pay a guy $7 million a year. We have Caden Ellis. We have Troy Anderson. Was Troy Anderson hurt? Yeah. Was Caden Ellis bad in some aspects? Yeah. But like, also, off-ball linebacker, give me a break. Like, we need a starting center. We might need somebody better than Leonard Floyd to rush the passer. We're going to trot out DeMarco Hellams coming off an ACL on the back end. What about our nickel? That's a starting position. But as long as we have 3 starting caliber off-ball linebackers,
I mean, Caden Ellis, unless they decide to make him.
Yeah, that's what I said. Are we going to move Caden Ellis to the edge?
Yeah,
No.
I mean,
and to your point, by the way, Chase, to your point, the fact that Onyemata hasn't been extended, that McGarry hasn't been extended, these guys are in the final year of their contracts. And a way to free up cap space would be to extend those guys, kick a lot of money down the road, and get their cap number down to something really cheap this year to create more space now. All the more reason that you're saying we're not going to do that. One, either because you don't trust the player, and 2, because you don't want them on the roster next year, and you're just going to open up cap space to do other things because you're going to have $25 million dead cap from Kirk Cousins regardless. Like, the other part of that is, though, are you going to address those guys in the draft? Like, if they went offensive tackle in the first round, what's your thought process?
I wouldn't.
There's a right tackle that isn't going to make it to 15. I'm blanking on his name, as I would have butchered it even if I tried. He is a day 1 starter, could be Michael Penix's blind side for a decade. I'm blanking on his name. I'm sorry, but I would have no problem cutting McGarry after the draft if that were the case.
I also wouldn't. I mean, you'd save like $12 million against the cap by cutting McGarry.
Well, it offset with paying that guy, but you would still save money. You would still save a few $1 million.
Yeah, I mean,
and then the Dahlman thing too is also perplexing. Like, my biggest issue with the Dahlman thing is more philosophical. Do I think Dahlman was worth that kind of money? No. Right? Was he probably overpaid? I think there's a fair argument for that. However, letting your own guys walk out of town that you drafted is always a bad sign for an organization, that you can't retain your own. That you did, like, if you allowed the guy to be a 2-year starter for you, and then when he came to free agency, it looked like you didn't even make a play for the guy. And for a GM who's got an awful draft track record, the idea that you'd let a day 2 pick that actually was a starter walk out the door just sends a bad message to people about the organization, right? Like,
and he's the only one.
He's
one. Like, there's only one of them. Like, you screwed up the cap so much, and you only have one guy that you've drafted that you want to resign, and you can't even do that. How is that possible? Like, literally think about that. You have drafted.
Usually it's like, we draft so many good guys, we got to pay all of our guys, and we just can't for this 4th round pick.
You have drafted one guy outside of the first round, that's come up for contract extension and been worth a damn.
Because I covered the Ravens for a decade, right? And that was the hallmark of them. They never let their own guys leave. And the ones that they did never made it anywhere else, because they were the ones who really flourished in that Ravens system and in that locker room and in that, that whole environment. They were really good about that. It's hard to think of a Ravens guy who walked out the door. Even now, is Patrick Queen better with the Steelers than he was?
Hell no.
No. I mean,
no.
They know who to let go and who not. And
Judon.
Exactly, right? They weren't going to pay. What has Judon done since he left the Ravens? Nothing.
Had a couple of good years with the Pats, and then came.
But
to the Falcons.
That's another organization where they let their guys go that don't end up being any good, and they keep the guys that turn out to be good, and then they bring them back on the cheap later after they get released by their team, and they go back to being good again.
We are the sloppy seconds of the NFL. She's beat up, and we'll take her, and we'll pay. We'll take you out to a nice 5-star meal too.
Oh, you get to go to the yacht.
Yeah, you get to do everything.
Arthur Blank's private jet.
It's a problem. Like, again, roster construction now starts to become a problem for this team. It's fair enough. Roster construction is a continual problem for this team in the way that they're built. And again, no disrespect to Jeff Ulbrich, right? Like, Brick may be a good guy and a good coach, but turning this defense around doesn't seem like something that he is in position to do at this point.
It'd be amazing.
I always think personnel, Jimmy's and Joe's matter more than X's and O's on the defensive side of the ball. I'll take that to my grave. And we don't have the Jimmys and Joes right now.
No, but I want to ask you guys, I know we may have to take a break here, but I want to talk about Trey Hendrickson and the idea of trading for him.
Yeah. All right, let's do that after the break. We'll take a break and we'll talk about Trey Hendrickson. I know that's what everyone wants to hear about. So I'm glad you got some
maybe Kirk Cousins and the one after. I'd love to, spar with Mark a little bit on Kirk Cousins.